The penthouse was quiet, too quiet for a home with 2 children. Serena Woods stood barefoot in the kitchen, her fingers moving mechanically as she sliced cucumbers with precision. Each motion was measured, deliberate. There was no joy in the act, only routine. The twins, Dara and Dora, giggled faintly from the playroom. Their laughter filtered through the marble walls like a ghost of happiness she barely remembered being part of. Her reflection in the oven door showed a woman who no longer recognized herself. Not truly. The glow from her early 20s, gone. The sparkle that used to light up her face when John looked at her, extinguished. Her silk robe clung to her curves, but it didn't matter. He hadn't noticed her in years. Upstairs, footsteps thudded in rapid succession. John, pacing again. That meant a storm was coming. She closed the fridge and straightened the silverware. Every fork was aligned, every napkin folded with care. It wasn't for presentation, it was survival. John liked order, neatness, control, but lately, even perfection seemed to provoke him. The creak of the staircase, the sudden silence. Serena. She flinched, though she'd been expecting it. Yes? She called, smoothing the towel between her fingers. He descended like a prosecutor, a sheet of paper gripped tight in his hand, the latest credit card statement. His lips were already curled in contempt. What is this? She didn't need to look. You went to Kaya? 500 on skincare? He sneered. For what? Her pulse quickened. She braced herself. It was for me, she answered. Calm, controlled. A moisturizer and serum. He scoffed. For you? You planning to walk a red carpet I don't know about? Serena held his gaze. I needed something for myself. John laughed bitterly. You think cream is going to fix those stretch marks? She clenched her jaw, but said nothing. You've had twins, Serena. You're not exactly cover material anymore. He tossed the paper on the counter like it was trash. She stood straighter. I still have a body. I still deserve care. He ignored that. That's why I'm taking Rousey to the gala next weekend. She fits the brand. Serena blinked. You're taking her? He smirked. You're not public material anymore. That was it. That was the line that burned deeper than all the others. He didn't yell. He didn't hit. But this was violence. A slow, eroding kind. The twins called from the hallway, something about a puzzle. She forced a smile and excused herself without a word to John. She wouldn't let him hear the quake in her voice. Upstairs, she tucked the girls in, brushing soft curls from their cheeks. Their innocence was a shield. They didn't know they were hidden. They didn't realize Daddy never introduced them to the world, or that Mommy only existed behind thick curtains. She kissed their foreheads and slipped into her room, the door shut with a whisper. There, she sat, still, silent. The bed was too big, cold on one side, the vanity untouched. Her wedding photo was turned toward the wall. She had done that 2 weeks ago, but hadn't found the courage to remove it. Outside the window, the city pulsed with life. People were dining, dancing, laughing. She used to be one of them. Now she was the secret. The woman who wasn't photogenic enough, who had done the one thing Rousey never had, carried his legacy. Twice. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Serena didn't answer. Her mother had warned her once, men like John love you quietly, but they'll celebrate someone else publicly. She hadn't wanted to believe it. Back then, she had believed in fairy tales. Now she just believed in facts. Fact, she was tired of waiting to be seen. Fact, no one was coming to rescue her. Fact, the woman she used to be was still buried inside her. She just needed a spark. Downstairs, the scent of salmon still lingered. She poured herself a glass of wine. Not the cheap kind John reserved for off-brand guests. She opened the good bottle, the one from their anniversary in Paris. She sipped slowly, letting the warmth trickle through her chest. There had to be more than this. More than perfectly folded napkins. More than shame over stretch marks. More than watching another woman parade around in her place. The kitchen light flickered slightly. The moment felt fragile, like the first breath after too long underwater. Then, her phone rang. Clara, her best friend, the only one who hadn't disappeared when John started isolating her. Serena answered. Hey, Clara said softly. Serena didn't speak at first, just breathed. You okay? Serena hesitated. Then with the smallest tremble, Would you be able to watch the girls tomorrow? There was a pause. Then Clara replied, "No questions asked. Say the word. I'll take them all weekend." Serena closed her eyes. "Thank you." That night, she stood in front of the mirror again. No makeup, just skin. The lines under her eyes didn't lie. Neither did the slight curve of exhaustion in her spine. But under the surface, something stirred. She reached into her drawer, pulled out the crimson lace she hadn't worn since her honeymoon. She held it against her chest. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow, I stop disappearing. Hello, my beautiful and amazing family of love and twilights. This is Dr. Phillips, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Let's dive right into another captivating story together. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and tap that like button to stay connected with all our stories. Now, let's begin. The next morning rose with a cool gray light seeping through the curtains. Serena didn't wait for the alarm. She was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, her red lace, lingerie folded beside her like a relic from a different lifetime. The weight of years, silenced longings, unseen sacrifices, dismissed desires had finally begun to lift. The plan wasn't perfect. She didn't need perfect. She needed movement. Dara and Dora were still asleep when Clara arrived. The moment she saw Serena, Clara's eyes widened, not at how Serena looked, but at the way she stood. "You look different," Clara said. Serena offered a faint smile. "Not different, just back." "No rush," Clara said. "I've got them. Go do whatever it is that's making you stand like you've got thunder in your bones." Serena gave her friend a quiet hug before slipping out the door. Manhattan was brisk that morning. A scarf wrapped around her neck. Lip balm coated her lips, but not yet color. She wasn't ready for the full transformation. First, she needed to remember how to walk alone. She passed a row of boutiques, windows filled with mannequins wrapped in luxury. For years, she'd convinced herself she didn't need any of it. But the truth wasn't about the clothes. It was about the feeling, the act of choosing herself. She paused outside a shoe boutique. Inside, sleek stilettos lined a mirrored wall like weapons dressed as accessories. A sign read, "Step into who you are." She walked in. The saleswoman, a young brunette with blunt bangs and bold red nails, glanced up. "Looking for something specific?" Serena tilted her chin. "Power, and maybe 5 inches." The woman smiled. "Right this way." Serena left with 5 pairs, each one deliberate. One pair, jet black with a golden heel, felt like standing on a throne. She took her time walking through the mall. The pace was unhurried, intentional. A few men turned to glance at her. One smiled. She didn't return it, but she noticed. She still had it, and John was wrong. She hadn't disappeared. She had just been waiting to be uncaged. She entered a boutique called Marlowe's, where the lighting was soft and the clothes felt stitched with ambition. The dresses weren't just beautiful, they were bold. She ran her fingers across fabrics, eyes narrowing at a crimson gown with a slit up the thigh and a low back. She didn't hesitate. The fitting room mirror revealed her body in a way she hadn't seen in years. Yes, the stretch marks were there, soft trails of motherhood etched across her hips, but they didn't steal anything from her. If anything, they added weight to her presence. She didn't need to ask for someone's opinion. She twirled once, caught her own eye, and said aloud, "This is mine." She bought 3 dresses, all unapologetically seductive. John's card paid for each one. Let him notice the charges this time. By noon, she stood at the entrance of the Kaya salon. "Appointment?" the receptionist asked. "No," Serena said, "but I think you'll want to fit me in." She wasn't wrong. A stylist emerged, eyes sparkling with curiosity. He studied Serena like she was a project, not a burden. "What are we doing today?" he asked. Serena sat in the chair, staring at herself in the mirror. "I want the old me gone, and I want her replaced with a woman who could make a man regret ever trying to shrink her." He raised a brow. "That I can do." The hours passed in a rhythm of transformation. Hair fell in soft waves to the ground. Color seeped into every strand, rich, bold, undeniable. As the blow-dryer roared, Serena closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw the cold marble kitchen. John's face as he waved the credit card bill. His words, "You think cream will fix your stretch marks?" His smirk when he said she wasn't public material. Her throat tightened, but not with sadness, with fire. When the stylist finally turned the chair around, Serena opened her eyes and barely recognized the woman staring back. Sleek bob, deep brown, angled, sharp, cheekbones accentuated, eyes bold and unflinching, lips bare for now, but she already knew what color they needed to be. She left the salon with a bag of new products in one hand and a fresh sense of gravity in her steps. The city had always belonged to men like John. Not anymore. By dusk, she was back at the Lafayette Hotel, a suite on the 12th floor overlooking the skyline. Clara had insisted she take the weekend. Go find yourself, she had said. And if you can't find her, build her. Serena stripped slowly. First, the coat. Then the blouse. Then, the high-waisted pants that had wrapped her waist like armor all day. She stood in her lingerie, facing the floor-length mirror. Her skin shimmered under the ambient light. Her stomach bore evidence of creation. Her thighs held strength. Her breasts, full and proud, no longer hidden beneath utility bras or oversized t-shirts. She climbed onto the bed and curled around a velvet pillow. Not from loneliness, but from choice. She let her hand roam across her own skin. Not rushed, not apologetic. She touched herself because she could. Because it reminded her she was alive. Because it reminded her this body had always belonged to her. She whispered to the ceiling, "You made me invisible. I'll make myself unforgettable." And as sleep took her, she dreamed of red dresses, slow kisses, and her daughters clapping as she walked into a room. Morning in Manhattan broke with gold seeping through the skyline. The Lafayette Hotel glowed in that early hush, its high floors wrapped in quiet. In suite 1203, Serena lay awake, not out of restlessness, but readiness. This wasn't just another day. It was a beginning. She rose from the bed slowly, letting the sheets slip off her like old skin. The mirror greeted her again, but this time she wasn't inspecting flaws. She was observing power. Her bare feet touched the cold marble floor. The silence no longer felt hollow. It felt earned. She moved to the bathroom and turned on the shower. Steam curled against the glass as hot water began its dance. She stepped in. It wasn't the water that washed her. It was intention. Her hands roamed her body, not critically, but tenderly. Her fingers traced the slight lines across her hips, the evidence of life carried and birthed. She touched her arms, her stomach, her thighs, not searching for imperfection but claiming territory. John had made her body feel like a burden. Today, it was a temple. She tipped her head back under the stream, letting the warmth coat her scalp, her shoulders, her spine. Her mind didn't wander to him. It stayed here, with her. Wrapped in a plush towel, Serena stepped out of the bathroom and crossed the room toward the bed. She'd laid out an outfit the night before, a cream silk blouse, high-waisted black trousers. That cinched her waist just right, and beneath it, red lace lingerie, new, daring, hers. She dressed like a woman ready to conquer, not accommodate. As she buttoned the blouse halfway and let the rest fall open just slightly, she paused in the mirror again. There was a softness to her lips, a fierceness in her eyes. She applied mascara, a dusting of blush, and then bold red lipstick. It was the exact shade of defiance. A knock came at the door. Room service. She opened it without hesitation. The server's eyes briefly darted to her mouth before politely returning to his tray. She noticed and smiled. She ate slowly. Fruit, eggs, fresh juice. Each bite felt like rebellion. For years, she'd eaten whatever was convenient for John's schedule or the children's needs. Now she fed herself with care. Her phone buzzed again. Clara, all is well. Girls painted half my bathroom wall blue, but we're surviving. Serena chuckled, then typed, Serena, tell them I'll bring glitter next time. She slid on her stilettos and grabbed her purse. It was time. The city roared beneath her heels as she walked past storefronts and strangers. Something was different. People looked longer. Some offered polite smiles. Others looked away quickly, as if unsure what to do with a woman who carried herself like she was done apologizing. A man in a gray suit bumped into her shoulder and muttered, Sorry. She didn't flinch or offer forgiveness. She kept walking. The cafe was tucked between a florist and a bookstore. Serena chose it intentionally. Open-air seating, good lighting, and the kind of place frequented by women who knew their own schedules. She sat by the window, ordered a cappuccino, and waited. Not for anyone else, for herself. As she sipped, she pulled out her notebook. Not a planner, not a to-do list. A fresh, cream-covered journal that Clara had gifted her years ago. It had remained unopened, until now. She turned to the first page and wrote, "No one will write me out of my own life again." She kept going. Lines flowed like truth. You are not his brand. You are your own empire. You were never the shadow. You are the sun. The waitress returned and asked if she wanted anything else. Serena smiled. A refill. And a croissant. She ate slowly again. This time not because of indulgence, but because the world had spent too long rushing her. This moment was hers. She spent the next hour in and out of boutiques, not because she needed more clothes, but because she was remembering the art of wanting. Not survival, not necessity, desire. In a vintage shop she found a gold chain necklace, delicate but strong. It reminded her of her grandmother, who used to say, "Never let a man dull your shine. They'll try. Your job is to keep polishing." She wore the necklace out of the store. Later, she returned to the hotel with her hands full and her spirit light. The elevator ride to her suite felt like an ascension. Once inside, she stripped again. Not out of shame, out of ownership. She stood in her heels and red lingerie, walking the length of the room with slow grace. She passed the mirror, paused, then turned to face herself fully. This was the woman John never believed could survive without his spotlight. This was the woman who'd been raising twin girls while holding her own breath. This was the woman who no longer needed him to say she mattered. She said it herself. She pulled out her phone and opened the Notes app. A list began to take shape. Find a lawyer. Secure personal bank account. Transfer savings. Buy the dress. Choose the moment. There would be a reckoning, not one with screams or spectacle, but one with poise, red lips, and timing sharp as a blade. The gala was 3 days away, and for the first time in years she was going, not as an accessory, as a statement. That night she ordered dinner to the room, truffle pasta, roasted vegetables, and a glass of red wine. She played music. She danced barefoot. Alone, but never lonely. She thought of Dara and Dora and how they deserved to see their mother as more than tired, more than hidden. They needed to see her laugh, to wear red, to own space, so that one day, when someone tried to make them small, they'd remember their mother had fire. And it never dimmed. She opened her closet. The red dress waited, still wrapped in its silk bag. She unzipped it halfway, letting her fingers explore the smooth fabric. Then she closed it again. Not yet, but soon. The next time she wore it, it wouldn't just be a dress. It would be the answer to every time someone asked, "Where is John Woods' wife?" She was done hiding. Let the world meet her now. The sun had barely risen when Serena's fingers hovered above her phone. She hadn't called anyone in a long time without an excuse, especially not for help. But today wasn't about pride. It was about taking back control. She scrolled to Clara's contact. Her thumb hesitated for only a second before she pressed call. It rang once, then twice. Clara's voice came on sleepy but alert. "You okay?" Serena took a breath. "I need you." There was no dramatic pause, no sigh, no judgment. Just, "What time do you need me?" "By noon. I need a full day." Clara didn't ask why. She didn't pry. "Bring their overnight bags. I'll keep them as long as you need. You focus on whatever this is." Serena exhaled, her throat tightening at the quiet loyalty in her friend's voice. "I'll make it up to you." "You'll do no such thing," Clara said. "You gave me strength once, remember? When I almost didn't leave Malcolm." "This is just the return of favor." Serena smiled faintly. "I remember. You said your kids deserve to see you choose yourself." Clara's voice warmed. "Now it's your turn." By 11:30, Serena had packed Dara and Dora's things. Pajamas, toothbrushes, their favorite bedtime books, matching plush bears. She tucked handwritten notes into their bags, small affirmations they could read before bed. To Dara, "You are light." To Dora, "You are strength." Downstairs, she crouched beside them as they zipped their coats. "Are you going on a date?" Dora asked with wide eyes. Serena laughed softly. "No, sweetheart. Just going to do something important for me." Dara tilted her head. "Is it something fun?" Serena thought for a moment, then nodded. "It will be." They hugged her tight, both of them smelling like strawberry shampoo and innocence. Clara arrived in a flurry of curls and big sunglasses. "You two ready to cause a little chaos at Auntie Clara's?" she said, swinging the back door open. "Can we have pancakes for dinner?" Dora asked. "You can have cake for breakfast if you want," Clara winked. Serena laughed. "Please don't let them bounce off the walls." "I make no promises." They hugged again, Serena holding on a little longer this time. The girls climbed into the car. Clara leaned over the door. "Whatever you're planning," she whispered, "make it unforgettable." Serena's smile didn't waver. "I intend to." The moment the car pulled away, silence wrapped around Serena like silk. It wasn't the same silence as before. This one was chosen. She walked back inside slowly. No rush, no need to brace herself for John's moods. He was away at work, or with Rousey, whatever fantasy he was curating that day. That wasn't her concern anymore. She walked into the closet, fingers gliding over the garments she'd once chosen with him in mind. Neutral tones, soft fabrics, nothing that invited attention. She pulled them aside and revealed the 3 new pieces she'd bought the day before. Sharp silhouettes, vivid colors, unapologetically loud. Serena touched the red dress again, still untouched in its garment bag. Not yet. Today wasn't for that dress. Today was for the transformation beneath it. She called a private driver. "Lafayette Hotel," she said simply. The driver nodded, opening the door for her like she was already somebody important. She climbed into the back seat, legs crossed, fingers tapping lightly against the leather. It was subtle, but she could feel it. The shift. Something had taken root, and it wasn't waiting for permission anymore. She passed the time checking her reflection in the window, not for vanity, for certainty. She wasn't nervous. Not really. But there was an electricity under her skin, a buzz that reminded her of the first time John had kissed her in public. That flash of being wanted, seen. Except now, the difference was stunning. She didn't need anyone else to confirm her worth. This time, she saw herself. The hotel suite welcomed her like an ally. She walked in and dropped her bag on the velvet chaise. Her phone vibrated. A message from Clara. "Clara, they're good. Already playing salon with my dog. Focus on you." Serena set the phone down and turned to the full-length mirror. Then she laughed. Not a small chuckle. A real, chest-deep laugh. Because for the first time in a long while, she wasn't scared of the mirror. She wasn't tucking anything in. She wasn't shrinking. She was preparing to emerge. The air in the suite had a stillness to it. Not dead, but waiting. Serena moved deliberately now. Every step like punctuation, every breath with intent. Her suitcase lay open on the bed, the silk interior reflecting soft light. She lifted the lingerie first, red lace, the kind she once wore to seduce, but now wore for herself. She placed it gently on the bed, beside a pair of glossy black stilettos, and moved toward the bathroom. The mirror greeted her again. No judgment this time, just observation. Her robe slipped from her shoulders and pooled at her feet. She stared at her reflection. Stretch marks, full hips, rounded thighs, strong arms. A woman who had survived childbirth. A woman who had carried love, pain, and silence in equal measure. But now she carried herself. The shower steamed quickly. She stepped inside and let the heat melt into her skin. This wasn't about cleansing. This was preparation. Water slid down her spine like liquid courage. She shampooed slowly, conditioned like she was oiling armor. Her skin welcomed the lather, luxurious, thick, scented with something sensual and deep. Not for anyone else's pleasure, just hers. When she stepped out, she toweled herself dry in front of the mirror. No rush, no hiding. Then she moisturized from head to toe, watching every inch glow under her fingertips. By the time she walked back into the bedroom, towel wrapped around. Her hair, her skin looked like it had remembered its own language. She sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled. The mirror across from her caught the light in a way that made her body shine. She smiled, then rose and opened the wardrobe. She didn't reach for the red dress, not yet. She selected a new cream blouse with mother-of-pearl buttons and slipped it on, leaving the top 3 undone. Then the black trousers, tailored perfectly, hugging her in all the right places. Next, the heels. When she stood, she felt taller than 5'8". She felt unshakable. The necklace she'd bought, the delicate gold chain, rested against her collarbone like a whisper of memory. She stepped toward the vanity and sat. Makeup waited, carefully curated. She began with her brows, softly defined. Then her eyes, subtle smoky shadow, liner that winged with purpose, mascara thickening lashes into fans. Her lips came last. The red, that same bold red she hadn't touched in years. She applied it carefully, the color blooming across her mouth like vengeance done with velvet. She looked up at her reflection, then stared. Not a single part of her shrank. She turned sideways, then angled slightly. There was no bad angle, only a woman who'd returned to herself. Serena picked up her phone and switched the camera to selfie mode. She clicked once, twice, then again. No filter, no soft lighting, raw and real. She stared at the photos, each one unapologetically confident. She didn't smile in them. She didn't need to. The power was in the silence between the frames. She glanced at the clock. Nearly 5. Still hours until the gala. But this wasn't about the gala yet. This was about proof that even before she walked into that ballroom, she had already arrived. She walked across the room and poured herself a glass of red wine, sipped, stared out the window. The city glistened with the arrogance of wealth and ambition, but for the first time in a long time, Serena didn't feel beneath it. She was part of it. She belonged in it. Maybe not as John's wife, maybe not as the woman who stood beside him like a silent footnote, but as someone in her own right, someone who could own a room without needing a name tag to be recognized. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an old college friend she hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. Tasha, saw your post. Girl, damn, you look powerful. Serena blinked. She hadn't realized she posted it. She opened Instagram. Her finger had hovered earlier. She must have pressed share. The photo was there now. Live. No caption. Just a red mouth, steady gaze, and undeniable presence. The comments were already growing. Wow. Unbothered queen. That glow is disrespectful. Where's she been hiding? John's wife? She closed the app. It didn't matter what they said. This moment wasn't about going viral. It was about arrival. She turned back to the mirror, unbuttoned another notch on the blouse, tilted her head, then leaned in. You forgot me, she whispered to her reflection, imagining John's voice behind her, shocked, threatened, undone. But you'll remember me now. She applied a final coat of gloss over the lipstick and stood. Straight, whole. Serena stepped out of the hotel lobby like it was a runway, and the city was finally watching. Her heels struck the pavement with confidence, not arrogance, just certainty. She wasn't invisible. Not today. Not anymore. She wasn't heading to just any store. She had a destination in mind, a place where she used to glance at the windows and walk away, convincing herself she didn't need anything luxurious because mothers should be practical. Today, she wasn't shopping for comfort. She was arming herself. The mall stood like a cathedral to excess. Glass domes, polished floors, everything scented with citrus and wealth. It was the kind of place John frequented, just never with her. She walked in with her chin high, ignoring the way the security guard glanced sideways, as if unsure whether to greet her or assess her. Her tailored pants, lipstick, and stare made the choice for him. He nodded. Serena didn't pause. Her first stop was a shoe boutique. The shelves shimmered with glossy leather, satin, and studs. She walked past rows of loafers and boots until she found what she needed, stilettos. High, dangerous, exquisitely made. A young man approached, clearly new, clearly startled by her poise. May I help you? Yes, Serena said, lifting a shoe with a golden heel. I'll take this one, and bring me your 5 best-selling heels in my size. No wedges. He blinked. Right away. She sat, crossing her legs, the hem of her blouse falling just above the curve of her thigh. Not deliberate, just present. As he returned with boxes, she tried each pair. The gold heels made her taller. The crimson stilettos sharpened her legs like a statement. The snakeskin ones dared the floor to talk back. She chose all 5. From there, she moved to the high-fashion wing of the mall. Past the generic names, she entered La Marie, a designer house John had once bought a watch from, but had never taken her inside. A tall black woman in a linen suit greeted her. Looking for something specific? She asked with the gentle curiosity of someone used to reading moods. Serena paused. Yes, I want a dress that makes people stand. I want fabric that silences rooms. I want to walk in and never need to introduce myself. The woman smiled, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of the hunt. You're looking for disruption. I'm looking for arrival. Follow me. They moved past racks of subtle dresses into a private back room. The walls were lined with gowns that didn't just hang, they commanded. The attendant, her name tag read Elise, held up options one by one. This one's got movement. No. This one's loud but the slit's conservative. No. Then she reached for a gown that looked like it had been dipped in fire. Deep red, low-cut neckline, thigh-high slit, backless. Serena took one look and whispered, "Yes." The dressing room was quiet, except for the rustle of silk. Serena stepped into the gown, her hands steady. The fabric hugged her without pleading, honored her curves, kissed her skin like devotion. When she turned to the mirror, her breath caught, not in doubt but realization. This dress wasn't just beautiful. It was a mirror of who she'd become. She walked out to Elise, who gasped softly. "Ma'am," she said, hands clasped at her chest. "Whoever you are, they're not ready." Serena smiled, smoothing the fabric along her hip. "I know. Next, lingerie, not utility cotton, not boring beige." She entered Velour, a boutique specializing in high-end undergarments. A woman with silver hair and a knowing smirk approached her. "Something for someone special?" the woman asked. Serena tilted her head. "Yes. Me." She selected a crimson lace set that matched the gown perfectly. Then a black set, barely there. Then ivory silk, for quiet victories. She didn't flinch at the price. She swiped John's card. Sweet vengeance in one smooth motion. The cashier tried not to react, but Serena caught the flicker in her eyes when the name on the card popped up. She leaned in and said quietly, "He'll notice when I walk into the room, not when the bill hits him." The cashier grinned. "Yes, ma'am." Bags in hand, Serena made her way to the final stop, Ardent Parfums. The scent inside was warm, rich, sensual. She walked to the private blending counter and met the in-house perfumer, a tall man with soft fingers and an eager glint in his eye. "Signature scent?" he asked. "No, a scent that makes people remember me long after I leave." He studied her a moment, then began. Amber, vanilla, a hint of leather, jasmine, a final drop of oud. He held the test strip to her wrist. She inhaled. It smelled like power, like seduction laced with danger, like a woman reborn. "I'll take it." She named the custom blend, Inheritance. As she exited the mall, arms full, back straight, every click of her heels felt louder. Not obnoxious, just inevitable. People glanced. Some stared. One woman whispered to her friend. Serena didn't need to hear it. She already knew what they were saying. Outside, her driver was waiting. He opened the door without needing to be prompted. As she settled into the back seat, the bag surrounding her like treasure, her phone buzzed. "Clara, your girls just made me eat a plastic donut. I'm under siege. How's your day?" Serena laughed out loud. "Serena, I think I just bought the city." Back at the hotel, she laid everything out on the bed. The shoes, the dresses, the perfume bottle with her name engraved, the lingerie. It wasn't indulgence. It was reclamation. She poured herself a glass of champagne and stood in front of the mirror again. Then, without hesitation, she pulled out her phone and snapped another photo. This one not of her face, but of the items laid before her. Caption, "This is what restoration looks like." She didn't tag anyone. Didn't need to. The salon's front doors opened with a soft chime. Serena stepped inside, the scent of fresh blowouts and Moroccan oil swirling around her. The floor gleamed. Rows of stylists moved like artists, brushes flicking, blow dryers humming, scissors gliding. It was a place of reinvention, of declarations, and today it was hers. A young woman at the reception desk looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Serena replied smoothly, her tone unwavering. "But I think you'll want to fit me in." The receptionist gave her one glance, just one, then nodded. One moment. Minutes later, a tall man with dreadlocks tied into a neat bun approached her. He wore all black, save for silver rings on his fingers and a leather apron that said Alec. He looked her over once, head tilted slightly. His gaze was assessing, but not judgmental. "You looking for a touch-up?" he asked. Serena shook her head. "I'm looking for a transformation." Alec folded his arms, interested now. "Be specific." She sat down in his chair, faced the mirror, and met her own gaze. "I want you to cut away every inch of who I was. I want a style that speaks before I do. Something sharp, Beautiful, dangerous. I want to look like the kind of woman a man regrets underestimating. Alex smiled slowly. Say no more. He began by unclipping her hair and letting it fall down her shoulders. It was thick, long, and had gone untouched for far too long. Once, John had loved it, had begged her to leave it natural, said it looked softer, more maternal. Serena didn't want softness. Alex's fingers combed through the strands. You sure you're ready? I was ready yesterday. He didn't hesitate again. The scissors came next. Long chunks fell like pieces of the past. With each cut, Serena felt lighter, not just physically, emotionally, visibly. The weight of trying to be what John wanted, the pressure to maintain a version of herself that served someone else's comfort, it slipped to the floor. She didn't flinch once. When the majority of the length was gone, Alec began shaping it, sculpting it into a bob so precise it looked like geometry. Angled at the jaw, blunt at the ends, sleek, striking, unforgettable. Then came the dye. Serena had always worn her natural shade, deep brown, untouched. But now, Alec mixed a cocoa-rich gloss with a hint of burgundy. When it caught the light, it would shimmer, like fire without flames. As the color set, she sat in silence, a towel around her shoulders, her reflection sharpening by the second. Alec returned after 20 minutes and began rinsing. She leaned back into the basin, letting the water flow through her scalp. Her eyes closed. Her mind wandered, not to John, not to the twins, not even to Clara, just inward, to herself, to the little voice that had been quiet for years and was now screaming, not out of fear, out of joy. Back at the station, Alec blow-dried her new cut with intention. Every strand fell in place like punctuation. When the chair spun toward the mirror again, Serena stared. And stared. The woman looking back at her was everything she had asked for. Bold, chiseled, luminous. Not a whisper of apology left in the angles of her face. Alec applied a touch of makeup. Soft gold around the lids. Liner sharp enough to command attention. Blood-red lips that matched her lingerie and her mood. He stepped back. Now that's the face of a woman who doesn't ask for approval. Serena stood slowly. She took one final look in the mirror and nodded. She's here. At the front desk, she paid in full, with a card that bore the name of the man who once told her she wasn't worth the public eye. The receipt printed. She signed with a flourish. As she stepped outside, the wind lifted the collar of her blouse. The city felt different now, like it wasn't just towering around her, it was watching her back. She pulled out her phone and opened the camera again, tilted her chin, clicked, then walked away without reviewing the shot. She didn't need to. She knew what it captured. Hello, my amazing family. If you are still here with me enjoying this story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, because we're about to enter the most interesting part of the story. The suite was quiet when Serena returned. She stepped inside and paused near the door, one hand still on the handle. The sun was beginning to drop behind the buildings outside, casting a warm amber glow over the skyline. The city buzzed far below, but up here, the stillness was sacred. She slipped off her heels and let them rest by the door. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. She moved toward the bed and set her purse down. The red dress hung untouched in its silk garment bag, still waiting. Tonight was not its night, not yet. There was still one more thing she needed before stepping fully into her next chapter. She walked to the mirror. Slowly, deliberately, she unbuttoned her blouse, each pop of the pearl fastening marking another layer shed. When she reached her trousers, she undid them with one smooth motion and let them fall to the floor. Now, only the lingerie remained. Red lace, unapologetic, beautiful. Serena stood tall, letting her eyes take in every inch of herself. She didn't focus on flaws. She didn't search for angles. She just saw. She climbed onto the bed, sinking into the plush comforter. The room was dim, the city's golden light still trailing in through the windows, giving her skin a soft sheen. Her hands moved first to her stomach, the place where her daughters had once lived. A body changed, but not ruined. Never ruined. She slid her fingers gently over the curves of her waist, the lines along her hips. She closed her eyes, not because she was afraid to look, but because she wanted to feel. Her breath deepened. This wasn't performance. This wasn't for seduction. This was reclamation. Her palm brushed along her thigh, then up to her ribs. She cupped her breast, her thumb grazing softly over the lace. A quiet sigh escaped her lips, not loud or dramatic, just real. Her body warmed under her own touch, not because she missed someone else, his hands, but because she remembered what it was to deserve her own. No judgment, no shame, no filter. For years, she dimmed herself, covered up, moved quietly, touched herself in shadows, if at all, out of habit, not hunger. But tonight, she allowed the truth to settle. She missed being worshipped. She missed heat. She missed being seen. But more than all of that, she missed loving herself. As her hand moved lower, her breath caught. Not from surprise, from confirmation. There was still fire here. Not just in her mind, not just in her heart, but in her skin, between her thighs, in the way her back arched ever so slightly as her fingers dipped into silk and sensation. She bit her bottom lip, eyes fluttering shut. Her moans weren't a performance. They were reminders that this body was hers. She took her time. No rush, no pressure, only awareness, only power. Her other hand slid over her stomach again, grounding her. This wasn't about fantasy. This was about truth. Her legs trembled gently as her breath grew sharper. The tension built, not just between her thighs, but in her chest. An ache for release, not just physical, but emotional. And then it broke. Her body shuddered. Her lips parted. A soft cry, delicate, sharp, whole, left her throat as she came. And when it was done, she didn't flinch. She smiled, eyes still closed. She lay still for a moment, hand resting on her stomach. The room was quiet, but everything inside her had changed. She reached for the edge of the bed, grabbed the sheet, and wrapped it loosely around herself before standing. She walked, barefoot, slow, toward the window. The skyline glimmered, unaware. Serena pressed her hand against the cool glass. She didn't belong to anyone else's expectations anymore. Not John's, not society's, not even the version of herself that had once settled. She belonged only to her truth. She whispered to her reflection in the window, "I don't owe anyone softness if they can't handle my strength." Then she turned away and let the city keep glowing. The next morning came gently. No jarring alarm. No call from John demanding explanations. No voices echoing through the penthouse asking where the twins' lunchboxes were. Just peace, cool air, and a woman lying flat on a king-sized bed, arms splayed, satisfied. Serena turned her head toward the sun-kissed curtains and let the light touch her face. She didn't rush out of bed. She didn't leap for her phone. She stayed still, present. Then, slowly, she reached for her phone, not to scroll through chaos, but to open the camera. She switched to the front-facing lens and studied the image on screen, bed tousled, curls, bare shoulders, full lips still kissed with faint traces of red. Her eyes were heavy, lidded, yes, but clear, awake. She didn't take a picture. She just looked, then smiled. Not for anyone else, just her. She rose from the bed, pulled the sheet around her, and padded to the floor-length mirror again, the same one she'd stood in front of the night before, now bathed in morning light. She dropped the sheet. Her skin, kissed with warmth, shimmered slightly. The red lace lingerie still lay folded neatly on the chair, unused since last night's reclamation. She picked it up, ran a thumb across the soft edge, then set it aside. Today, she didn't need armor. She needed elegance. In the wardrobe hung the dresses she had purchased, sleek, bold, unapologetic. The red gown waited for the gala. Another, ivory, backless and hugged at the waist, called to her now. She stepped into it slowly, zipped it halfway, then leaned into the mirror to apply fresh makeup. The face she now saw staring back at her was stunning, but not because of contouring or lip liner. It was stunning because it was whole, no longer dimmed for comfort, no longer edited for tolerance. She styled her hair into a clean side part. The cocoa burgundy bob framed her face like punctuation, every angle deliberate, every strand under control. She added pearl studs, spritzed her custom perfume, Inheritance, at her collarbone and wrists. One final swipe of gloss across her red lips, and she was done. She stood back. The mirror didn't blink. Neither did she. Clara's message buzzed in. "Clara, your girls are currently dancing on my kitchen counter. How's the revolution going?" Serena laughed. Serena, complete, woman restored, returning soon. "Clara, they miss you, but I can tell you're lighter. It's in your tone." Serena smiled at the screen. Then Serena, They'll see a different mommy now, the real one. She stepped into her heels and left the hotel for a late breakfast. The hostess at the rooftop restaurant didn't flinch when Serena approached solo. "Reservation?" she asked politely. Serena shook her head. "Walk in." The woman scanned the lists, then smiled. "We'll seat you by the window." She was led to a quiet corner where the city spread out like an offering. The view was stunning, glass, steel, and movement in every direction. But it was the stillness inside Serena that made it feel powerful. She ordered French toast, fruit, and coffee. As she sipped, her phone buzzed again. This time, from an unfamiliar number. She ignored it. Then another, and another. She checked her Instagram. The photo from the day before, the shot of the red dress, heels, perfume, and lingerie, had caught fire. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. Wife of CEO John Woods? Where has she been? She's the one he hid. Absolute goddess energy. Serena closed the app. She wasn't surprised. She hadn't posted for applause. But she knew how the world worked. A beautiful woman re-emerging from silence always sparked curiosity and envy. She finished her meal, paid in cash, walked through the city streets with poise, past one of John's billboards, Woods Global, bold is the brand. She stopped for a moment, looked up at his face 10 feet tall, cold, polished, empty, then kept walking, because bold wasn't something you marketed. It was something you became. Back at the hotel, Serena packed her bags with care. Not in a rush, not to go home, to move forward. Every item folded with purpose, every pair of heels set into place like tools. She left nothing behind, except the version of herself who once waited for permission. She left that woman in the mirror, where she had finally said goodbye. Before she zipped her suitcase, she unwrapped the red dress and laid it across the bed. She ran her hand over the fabric. The night of the gala was near. She would arrive not as an accessory, not as an afterthought, not as the hidden wife, but as Serena Woods, mother, visionary, and woman who no longer shrank. The gala pulsed with ambition. Lights flashed from towering chandeliers, music swelled from the string quartet, and photographers circled the marble-floored entrance like vultures searching for the next glittering headline. John Woods arrived at 7:48 p.m., sharp, his arm around Rousey Langford's waist. Rousey was dressed for spectacle, not elegance. A white sequin dress clung tightly to her hips, cut low in front, even lower in the back. Her platinum blonde hair was pinned in loose waves, and her eyes scanned the crowd for cameras before they scanned for people. She looked ready for a photo shoot, not a room full of power. John adjusted his cufflinks as the press surged forward. "Mr. Woods, over here. John, is this your date?" He nodded stiffly. "Is this your new partner at Woods Global?" Another reporter shouted. He forced a smile and guided Rousey inside before answering. The ballroom was already buzzing. Glasses clinked. Laughter rose in pockets. Rousey leaned in, her voice loud against his ear. "You didn't tell me there'd be this many old men." He didn't respond. His eyes scanned the crowd, looking for Howell, the chairman of the board. His presence mattered more than any press headline. Inside, servers moved through the room with trays of champagne. John grabbed one, handed it to Rousey, and muttered, "Just stick by me and smile." She pouted. "I didn't come here to be background noise." "Then don't be," he said coolly. "Try charm." As they reached the center of the room, Howell approached. Tall, imposing, with a gold handkerchief in his tuxedo pocket. John extended his hand. "Howell, good to see you." Howell nodded slowly. His eyes flicked to Rousey, who was already checking her lipstick in a compact mirror. "She's interesting," Howell said. "She's bold," John replied. "Exactly the kind of image the company's leaning into." Howell's face remained unreadable. "She's not your wife, though." John stiffened. "No, I haven't seen Serena in years," Howell said. "Is she doing well?" "She's private," John muttered. "Shame," Howell said. "She was the most composed woman I ever met. You know, people still ask about her." John didn't reply. He hated moments like this, when the past lingered, quiet and pointed, but Howell had already turned away. Meanwhile, Rousey's laugh rang across the room, loud and out of place. She grabbed a second glass of champagne and downed it before they even reached their table. "Are we getting a speech tonight?" she asked John. "Eventually," he said, jaw tight. Try not to interrupt it." She rolled her eyes. And that's when it happened. The whispers, soft at first, like a breeze through velvet, then sharper, intentional. Eyes turned toward the entrance. Rousey turned too, curious. John followed her gaze and froze. Serena Woods entered the room at 8:17 p.m. She didn't walk in. She arrived. The red dress hugged every curve without apology. The neckline plunged just enough to dare, and the thigh-high slit revealed caramel skin and legs that moved like grace in motion. Her hair was a sleek bob, her eyes lined in smoky defiance, and her lips, those unmistakable, red lips, parted slightly as she exhaled into the silence she had created. There were no introductions, no explanations, just awe. The photographers who had fawned over Rousey earlier now surged towards Serena. Flashes popped, questions were shouted, but she kept walking. Every step was measured, not hesitant, not rushed, claimed. A woman in a green satin gown gasped. "Is that John's wife?" Someone whispered back, "She was, I think." "No one's seen her in public in years." Another voice, awed, "She looks like a goddess." John didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared, mouth slightly open, eyes unable to look away. Rousey glanced at him and saw the panic creeping into his jawline, the tremor behind his eyes. "Who the hell is that?" she asked, annoyed. John didn't answer. He couldn't, because that woman, the one commanding the entire room without uttering a word, was the woman he'd kept hidden for years, his wife. Serena didn't spare him a glance. Instead, she walked toward the table of senior partners, where Howell now stood fully upright, smiling in disbelief. She extended a hand to him with elegance. "Serena Woods," she said smoothly. Howell took it with both of his. "Good Lord," he breathed. "They said you disappeared. I was simply misplaced. You're radiant." Serena smiled. "You're kind. John didn't mention you'd be attending. I didn't come for him." She turned to the others at the table and greeted each one with warmth and wit. Her voice, clear, melodic, controlled, filled the space with grace. Rousey leaned into John, whispering harshly, "Why didn't you tell me she looked like that?" John couldn't answer. His brain felt fogged, disarmed. This wasn't the Serena he remembered. No, this was someone else entirely, and she was untouchable. He started walking toward her, fast, determined. But for every step he took, the space between them widened, because she didn't look back. Not once, not until she was ready. The orchestra faltered, not because the conductor missed a cue, but because half the violinists were watching her instead of their sheet music. Serena Woods had entered the ballroom like a prophecy fulfilled, and now everyone wanted to see what came next. She didn't rush. She allowed the silence to swell around her. Every high heel click echoed like punctuation on a long-forgotten sentence. She didn't fidget. She didn't look around nervously for where she belonged. She knew. Serena turned heads not just because she was beautiful, but because her energy demanded it. Because she looked like a woman who knew she was owed something, and who had decided tonight was the night she'd collect. She reached the partner table and slipped into the empty seat at Howell's left. He was still smiling, glass of whiskey hovering midair. "You've just disrupted the entire donor circle," he murmured. "Good," Serena said, accepting a flute of champagne from the server. "I was beginning to worry the room had forgotten how to breathe." Howell laughed, low and delighted. "Everyone's going to talk. You know, they already are. You prepared for the fallout?" She sipped. "I'm prepared for the truth." Across the ballroom, John stood frozen. Rousey tugged at his arm, annoyed. "What's the problem?" "You look like you've seen a ghost." He didn't answer. His eyes were locked on Serena, on the red dress, the poise, the command, on the fact that she hadn't looked at him once. He moved toward her, almost without thinking, like a man pulled into gravity. Serena didn't flinch when he approached. She turned her head slowly, like she'd just noticed a ripple in an otherwise still lake. "John." Her voice was soft, measured, but it cut through the music like a blade. "Serena," he said, his mouth dry. "You can't just show up like this." "I was invited," she replied calmly, "by Howell. This is a charity gala, for the board. Not your private stage. You made a scene." "No, John. I am the scene." Howell leaned back in his chair, watching with interest. So did the surrounding tables. John lowered his voice. "We need to talk. Somewhere private. No, you need to listen. And I'm comfortable right here." He reached for her wrist, not hard, just an attempt to assert control, but Serena's eyes hardened instantly. "Touch me again," she said quietly, "and security will escort you out." The threat wasn't empty. It was royal. John stepped back instinctively. The guests nearby pretended not to eavesdrop, but they were all listening. Even Rousey, who stood awkwardly near the buffet, looked on with folded arms, her expression tightening by the second. Serena turned back to the table, lifting her glass. "To reappearances," she said to Howell with a smile. "To reclamations," he replied, clinking her flute gently. And that was it. John walked away, but not to Rousey. He drifted, lost, scattered, no longer the sun around which the room revolved. Rousey tried to catch his arm. "You didn't tell me she was this thing." He pulled away. "She was never supposed to be here," he muttered. At the table, Serena laughed at something Howell said, a natural laugh. Bright, unforced. The sound warmed the air. People who had once ignored her at events were now circling, eager to reintroduce themselves. A partner's wife leaned in. "I don't mean to pry, but are you really John's wife?" Serena turned to her. "Still legally. But not for much longer." The woman blinked. "I always wondered why we never saw you. I assumed, well," Serena smiled thinly. "You assumed I didn't fit the profile." The woman flushed. "That's not what I meant, but it's what you thought." Serena didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The woman stammered, then walked off in search of less threatening conversation. Howell leaned closer. "That was elegant. I've had practice." As the night wore on, Serena floated from group to group. She wasn't clingy. She wasn't passive. She owned each conversation, discussing business trends, philanthropic expansions, and her upcoming design projects. Each answer was confident, informed, sharp. People who once thought of her as the hidden wife now leaned in to hear her speak. She wasn't just present. She was central. Eventually, a server approached her with a note. "Private terrace, 10 minutes. H. Serena read it, folded it once, and stood. The terrace was quiet. The city stretched beneath her, twinkling, powerful, oblivious. She stepped into the wind, her dress catching just slightly, the slit rising high along her thigh. She didn't shiver. She didn't fidget. She simply stood. A door opened behind her. She turned. It wasn't John. It was Howell. He approached slowly, hands in his pockets. "You left everyone inside starstruck," he said. She arched a brow. "You say that like it's a problem." "It's not." He stopped beside her. "It's magnificent." She looked at him, eyes steady. "What do you want, Howell?" He took a moment, then answered honestly. "I want to tell you that you reminded everyone tonight what power looks like when it's quiet, refined, earned, and frankly, I'm glad you're no longer hiding." "I was never hiding," she replied. "I was put away, but not anymore." She nodded. "No," she said, "not anymore." He leaned against the railing beside her. "You changed the story." Serena smiled faintly. "I didn't rewrite it. I just stopped letting someone else hold the pen." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Howell said quietly, "You know, I've been around a long time, and I've seen many women rise and fade, but you burned through the room." She turned her head. "Careful," she said, a soft warning in her tone. "Flattery invites expectation." "I'm not flattering," he said. "I'm observing." She didn't smile, but she didn't walk away. Inside, the gala continued. But outside, something shifted. Serena wasn't here for revenge. She was here for recognition. And now that she had it, she felt no need to gloat. She simply let the wind kiss her collarbone as she turned toward the skyline again. No longer a woman erased. Now, a name whispered in every corner of the ballroom. Serena Woods. Unhidden, undeniable. John stood at the edge of the ballroom, drink untouched, watching the terrace doors like they might open and give him clarity. But they didn't. Instead, they mocked him, reminding him of what had just happened, of what everyone else had just seen. Serena, in that dress, in his world, commanding it like she owned the floor beneath her heels. His mouth had said her name when she entered, but his brain hadn't caught up. Serena? It wasn't just disbelief. It was humiliation, and he felt it in waves. Rousey approached again, her stilettos snapping against the floor. You going to tell me what's happening, or should I guess? John didn't answer. You said she wasn't the public face. You said she didn't want attention, that she was private, soft, not... Rousey paused, then gestured wildly toward the terrace. That... John's jaw tightened. She used to be different. She looks like she's finally alive. He turned sharply. Be quiet. No, Rousey said, voice rising. You brought me here to play a role and I've been playing it, but I didn't sign up to be the side piece in your falling empire. She tossed her clutch onto the table and walked away. John didn't go after her, because the truth was, he didn't care, not in this moment. All he could think about was the woman in red, the woman who had once waited for him to say her name in public. Now she didn't need him to say it at all. Inside, murmurs continued to ripple, whispers, side glances, smirks. The brand John had worked so hard to build, controlled, precise, intimidating, had been cracked open by a single appearance. Not a scandal, not an outburst, just Serena, existing. And now the board was watching him differently, like maybe they saw through the narrative he'd spun for years. Maybe they were questioning everything. 10 minutes later, the terrace doors opened. Serena stepped inside, alone. Her presence once again reset the temperature in the room. She didn't look around for him. She didn't need to. He made his way toward her, this time slower, less certain. He stopped just a foot in front of her, voice lower than before. Serena. She took a sip of champagne, eyes on the room, not him. John, we should talk. She looked at him now, finally. Cool, controlled, and entirely unimpressed. We did, not here. In private. Why? She asked, tilting her head. Afraid someone might hear the truth. He shifted. This isn't the place. It wasn't the place when you introduced Rousey as your partner either, she replied. But that didn't stop you. His lips parted, but nothing came out. She took a step closer, not intimidated, not cruel, just surgical. Do you know what's wild? She asked, voice soft. You spent years hiding me, telling me I wasn't the right look, that I didn't match the company's direction. He looked down. But tonight, I didn't even have to try, she continued. I walked in, and the company looked at me. Because you planned this. No, she said firmly. Because I stopped shrinking. The crowd had quieted again. Not fully, but enough. Enough for people to feel the tension vibrating between them. Enough for John to realize he no longer had the upper hand. He reached for something, anything, that would give him control. You embarrassed me. Serena's brow lifted. You humiliated me for years. One night of discomfort barely scratches the surface. You think this is going to make you look good? He hissed. No, she said, lifting her chin. I think I make me look good. He stepped closer. You're still my wife. Not for long. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a slim manila envelope. Folded, sealed. She handed it to him. What's this? Closure. He opened it. Divorce papers. Filed. Signed. Stamped. Real. You can't be serious, he said. I've never been clearer. John's voice dropped. You'll regret this. I regret waiting so long to do it. Serena turned to walk away, but paused. She looked over her shoulder one last time. And John? He looked up. I didn't have to destroy you, she said quietly. All I had to do was show up. Then she walked back to her table. And John stood there, alone, holding a future he didn't want, watching a woman he never deserved. Hello, family. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story, so be sure to share them in the comments while we're still on it. And if you're still here enjoying the journey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the family. The ballroom returned to its rhythm, but something had shifted. John stood off to the side, clutching the envelope as if it burned. His tie was loosened, his jaw clenched, and the man who once commanded boardrooms now looked like a background extra in someone else's story. Serena returned to the table she'd claimed beside Howell, but she didn't sit. She stood tall, glass in hand, surveying the room like it was hers to manage. Because it was. A group of donors approached, all smiles and compliments. One after the other, they shook her hand, dropped praise, offered subtle business cards. You looked luminous on arrival. I didn't know you had such poise under pressure. Would you consider speaking at our Women in Leadership Forum? She received it all with grace. Never over-smiling, never bending, only nodding, choosing, owning. Howell stood beside her, clearly amused. You know you've just replaced the keynote speaker, right? Serena tilted her head. Then I'll need a new gown. He chuckled. That red one might be a bit memorable. That was the point. But then she saw him. John, crossing the room again. A different walk this time, less confident, more deliberate. The tension was instant. He stopped 3 feet in front of her, not close enough to touch, not far enough to ignore. You need to stop. Serena arched a brow. Stop what? This performance. You've made your point. Her voice didn't rise. Her expression didn't change. And yet here you are. You've got everyone looking at you like you're a hero. I didn't ask to be anyone's anything. I just walked in. You humiliated me. No, she said. You did that all by yourself. He took a step closer, just enough for her to lower her glass. Why now? He asked, voice tight. Because I got tired of being erased. You had everything. A penthouse. My name. She cut him off. A cage with curtains is still a cage. You're being cruel. Serena let out a short breath through her nose. Cruel is watching your wife raise your daughters in silence while you parade someone else in public like she built you. Guests began to hush again, eyes turning, pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. I never asked for this drama, John hissed. You never asked for accountability either. He reached for her wrist again, instinctively. And again, she pulled back. But this time, she didn't just warn. She stepped forward. Touch me one more time, she said loud enough for the nearest table to hear, and I'll call security myself. Gasps, subtle but audible, rippled around them. Rousey, now seated near the open bar, whipped her head toward them. John's hand froze midair, then dropped. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, she said, because I don't need you anymore. Not for money, not for visibility, not for permission. He stared at her, something between disbelief and fear churning behind his eyes. Serena finished her champagne, placed the flute down with elegance, and offered one last blow. You were never the brand. I was. You just had the spotlight. Then she turned on her heel and left him standing there. Again, guests murmured in groups, some in admiration, some in speculation, but none of them were whispering about Rousey now. Or John. It was all Serena. The woman who had once been hidden now existed louder than ever, without shouting, just standing and walking away. Behind her, Howell followed slowly, not to catch her, not to interfere, but to witness, because power like that deserved an audience. And Serena? She didn't look back, not even once. The terrace was quiet again. Moonlight spilled across the stone floor like silver silk. The noise of the ballroom remained behind heavy glass doors, voices, music, clinking glasses, all muffled now. Out here, the air felt different. Clean, clear, free. Serena leaned on the railing, red gown catching the breeze, her skin lit by the glow of Manhattan's skyline. Her breathing was steady, controlled, but beneath her ribcage, there was something else now. Not adrenaline, not anger, desire, not for John, for herself, for what she'd become. A gentle voice broke the silence. I figured I'd find you here. She didn't turn immediately. She knew it was Howell. He stepped beside her, hands in his pockets, a respectful distance between them. I've seen plenty of women rise in this city, he said, but very few who make the room lean in without saying a word. I didn't do it for the room, she replied. I did it for the girl I used to be, the one who whispered instead of demanded. And tonight, she said, finally turning to face him, she stopped whispering. Howell didn't respond with words. He looked at her the way men look when they're trying not to ruin something sacred, when they're not sure if they're standing beside a person or a shift in the earth. Serena took a step closer. He didn't move. Her voice was soft. You didn't just follow me out here to give compliments. No, he admitted. I didn't. Then say what you came to say. He studied her for a moment. Seeing you tonight, it reminded me that control and grace can live in the same body, and that sometimes it's the woman who doesn't shout who ends up owning everything. Her lips curled slightly. You're flirting with metaphors. I'm flirting with you. She didn't react with surprise. Instead, she let the silence stretch just long enough to make him wonder what her answer would be. Then she said, "You're not the first man to try." "But I'm not John." "No," she said. "You're not." The breeze lifted again, brushing against her thighs as the slit of her dress danced. His gaze dropped, then rose again, disciplined, but not indifferent. "You looked at me like I was a woman," she said. "You are not a wife, not a brand. No, not someone attached to someone else. Never." Her chest rose and fell slowly. She stepped even closer. "So why are you still standing over there?" He took the cue. He closed the distance. When Howell reached her, he didn't reach for her waist. He didn't grab her face like some rushed romance. He let his fingertips trace her arm, bare, warm, electric. It wasn't hunger. It was reverence. "You sure?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Serena nodded. And that was all. Their lips met slowly. Not hesitant, intentional. A kiss not about claiming, but acknowledging. Like the world had tilted, and they were the only ones standing level. Her hands moved to his chest, fingers grazing the lapel of his jacket, then sliding beneath. His breath caught, sharp and deep. "You feel like certainty," he murmured. She smiled against his mouth. "I am." He guided her backward, toward the shaded corner of the terrace. She didn't resist. The city lights flickered behind her like applause. Her back met the glass, cool against her skin, a contrast to the heat pulsing through her. He kissed down her jawline, then to the curve of her neck, tasting her pulse. Her hand found the back of his neck, holding him there, guiding him lower. The straps of her gown loosened. She didn't flinch. She didn't blush. Her body was no longer a secret, even in the dark. The red dress slid from her shoulders, pooling at her waist. She stood in heels and lace, head tilted back, throat exposed to the stars. His lips found the top of her chest, then her collarbone, then lower. He dropped to his knees, his hands on her hips, his mouth worshiping her the way John never did. No hurry, no guilt, just adoration. Serena's hand found the railing behind her as her legs began to tremble. Not from nerves, from freedom. Her moan was low, tight, genuine. It echoed faintly off the concrete walls and disappeared into the skyline. Howell rose again, his face flushed, his eyes on fire. "You're shaking," he whispered. "I've waited a long time to feel this. Then let me help you remember." He kissed her again, this time deeper, more urgent. Their bodies pressed together, heat meeting heat, breath meeting breath. She wrapped her arms around his shoulders, pulling him in, owning the moment. No shame, no regret. Just two people under the moonlight, one rediscovering, the other revering. Her body melted against him, and when his hands slid under the lace, when her back arched against the cool glass, when her breath broke in his ear, it wasn't about him. It was about her. After they stood in silence, her head against his chest, his arms wrapped loosely around her waist. She looked up. "I'm not yours," she said. "I know. This wasn't a beginning. I didn't ask for one." She reached down, pulled her gown back up, smoothing it down her hips with ease. Then she faced him one last time. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For reminding me what it feels like to be chosen, without being owned." Howell leaned in, pressed a final kiss to her cheek, and stepped back. Serena walked away. Not rushed, not shaken, only stronger. And when she re-entered the ballroom, not one strand of hair was out of place. The ballroom buzzed with new energy the moment Serena stepped back inside. She didn't announce herself. She didn't need to. Her glow did the talking. The flush in her cheeks, the confident sway in her step, the faint smudge on her lipstick that she didn't bother fixing. It wasn't messy. It was deliberate. A message. Serena Woods was no longer waiting to be noticed. She was impossible to ignore. The crowd adjusted to her presence as if she were gravity. Conversation slowed. Heads tilted. Whispers picked up again, but this time they weren't speculative. They were reverent. "Did you see her with Howell?" She walked out glowing and came back shining. "She's different now, like she knows something we don't." Serena moved through the room, offering gentle nods to people she used to walk past invisibly. She smiled, not too much, not too little, just enough to remind them she had arrived on her own terms. Rousey, sitting alone near the silent auction table, looked up and nearly dropped her wineglass. Serena didn't stop. She walked past her like she was just another decoration, pleasant, inoffensive, and entirely forgettable. Rousey opened her mouth to speak but thought better of it. Because what could she say? There was nothing to compete with. Serena had already won, without a contest. At the far end of the ballroom, John remained posted by the bar, his drink untouched, his eyes locked on the woman he thought he had tucked away for good. She didn't spare him a glance. That was what hurt the most. Not the divorce, not the affair, not even the public unraveling of the persona he built. It was the silence, the void where her attention used to be, and the terrifying realization that her absence made him smaller. Serena returned to the partners' table and sat gracefully beside Howell, who had just re-entered from another entrance. He was composed, relaxed, but his gaze flicked to her with something between pride and admiration. He said nothing, and that was perfect. There was nothing that needed to be said. Dinner service resumed, but no one paid attention to the food. Every eye in the room kept drifting back to her. She laughed softly at a joke made by the managing director of one of Woods Global's partner firms. She crossed her legs and leaned in during conversation. She mentioned her upcoming design firm, subtly, never bragging. "You're starting your own brand?" the woman asked. Serena smiled. "It's been a long time coming." The table nodded in collective approval. Even Howell added, "If her eye for design is anything like her eye for presence, I'd invest without seeing a pitch." Laughter, genuine, warm, the sound of people aligning themselves with power. And Serena knew. This wasn't the peak. This was the reintroduction. She hadn't even started yet. Across the room, a junior analyst from Woods Global whispered to his colleague, "I thought she was just the CEO's wife." His colleague shook her head. "That was your first mistake." At one point, the MC took the stage to make announcements and thank the top donors of the night. When Howell's name was read aloud, polite applause followed. But when Serena's name was added, for her sudden but impressive contribution to the event's arts initiative, the applause shifted. It turned into a moment, louder, longer, not because of the number on the check, but because everyone knew she didn't need John's money to matter. She was the money. She was the moment. Rousey left early. No announcement, no scene. She exited quietly, heels echoing against the marble like a white flag. John didn't follow her. He didn't move, not even when Serena stood to give a toast on behalf of the initiative she'd just funded. She didn't need notes. She didn't need permission. She lifted her glass and said, "To every woman who's ever been told she was too much, too bold, too visible, too complicated. Tonight, I want to say, stay too much. The world will catch up." Thunderous applause. Standing ovation. John still didn't move. When the night ended, Serena stepped out into the cool air. Her driver pulled up in silence. She opened the door, but before stepping inside, she turned to Howell. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not standing in my way." He nodded. "You didn't need anyone to move. You just needed to remember you could walk through them." She smiled and slid into the car. As the door shut and the vehicle pulled away, she looked back only once, not to see what she'd left behind, but to confirm that she wasn't going back. The scent of fresh ground coffee filled the penthouse kitchen. Sunlight streamed in through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the edges of a satin robe as Serena moved gracefully across the tile. Her feet were bare. Her hair was loose. Her expression? Unbothered. She poured the coffee slowly. One sugar, no cream. Outside, the city stirred. Inside, everything was still, except for her pulse, which remained steady. She wore power like silk now, soft to touch, impossible to tear. The front door slammed. Footsteps, quick, uneven. Then his voice. "Serena." She didn't flinch. She didn't turn. She took a slow sip. John burst into the kitchen, his face flushed, breath short, tie askew. His eyes were bloodshot, not from tears but from disbelief. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." Serena finally looked up, mug still in hand. "Good morning. You think this is funny?" "No," she said calmly. "I think it's overdue." He pounded a fist on the marble island. "You set me up. I set myself free. You showed up at my event like some She raised a brow. Careful. Finish that sentence and you won't like who you become. John stared at her, then began pacing, running a hand through his hair. You don't get to just walk in like that, with that dress, with Howell, making speeches. I didn't ask for permission. That's the problem. No, she said. The problem was that I used to. He turned to her, jaw clenched. You want a divorce? It's already filed. You think you're going to take half of this? He gestured around the room. This is my empire. Her smile was cold. Controlled. Correction. This is our asset pool. The courts will sort it out. You've lost your mind. No, she said, sipping again. I've just stopped pretending you were the only one with one. Dara and Dora's laughter echoed faintly from their room down the hall. Serena tilted her head, voice softer now. Keep your voice down. Don't tell me how to speak in my own house. Serena's tone never changed. It's not going to be your house for long. He laughed bitterly, pacing again. So what now? You walk away and become some charity queen, date a board member, play the wounded icon? She set her mug down gently. I'm not playing anything. I'm being. There's a difference. You think you'll win in court? I'm not trying to win, she said, walking around the counter, standing directly in front of him. I'm trying to close the door you slammed years ago and pretend it didn't make a sound. He stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Maybe he was. Serena looked down at the man who used to define her schedule, her tone, her wardrobe. Now she barely recognized him. John, she said softly, you could have had a partner, a real one. You chose an audience instead. He scoffed, but it was weak. You're acting like you're some victim. No, she said, eyes sharp. I'm the aftermath. He stepped back. Quiet. Defensive. You don't care what this does to our image? I care what this does for my daughters. They deserve to see a mother who doesn't swallow herself to keep a man full. A long silence followed. Then his voice dropped. Quieter now. What about them? She crossed her arms. They'll be fine. Because they're loved. Because I'll protect their peace. Even if you couldn't protect mine, you're breaking our family. No, she said. You broke it when you decided being seen with someone who looked like me was a liability. That landed. Hard. He blinked. Didn't reply. She continued, voice unwavering. I begged you for presence. You gave me shadows. John turned away. Couldn't meet her gaze now. The same man who once commanded IPO rooms now looked like someone fumbling for a chair in the dark. Is there anything I can say? Yes, she said. You can say nothing and leave. A long beat passed. And then, he did. He turned and walked out of the kitchen. No more threats, no more begging, no more illusion. Just footsteps fading down the hall. Serena exhaled, not in relief. In release, she picked up her coffee again, still warm, and took another sip. Dara peeked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. Mommy. Serena smiled. Morning, baby. Dora followed, dragging her stuffed lion. Can we have pancakes? Serena nodded. Yes, and chocolate chips too. They squealed. She bent down, hugged them tight, and whispered, Guess what? Everything's okay. Because it finally was. The envelope sat on the kitchen counter, untouched, unopened. John had dropped it there when he stormed out, still sealed, still pristine. But the weight it carried hung thick in the air. Serena didn't rush to pick it up. She moved slowly, deliberately. She poured a second cup of coffee, her fingers steady. The twins giggled from the living room, Dora humming to a cartoon. Jingle while Dara stacked blocks higher than her arms could reach. Life had already moved on. Now it was time to catch up. Serena finally approached the envelope. Her name, Mrs. Serena Woods, typed neatly on the tab. The last time she saw her name in print like that, it had been on their wedding invitation. She ran her thumb along the edge, then opened it. Inside was the official acknowledgement from her lawyer. The filings were done. The process had begun. Papers served. Mediation date set. Asset disclosure ordered. It was real now. Not just an idea whispered over phone calls with Clara or fantasized about during lonely nights. Not just a distant threat muttered after fights. Real. Unfolding. Inevitable. She sat at the dining table with the documents spread before her. Her robe draped gently around her shoulders, the sleeves pulled tight at the wrist as she signed page after page. Each stroke of the pen felt like a sentence, not punishment. Declaration. Page 1. Custody arrangements. She checked the box. Joint custody with primary residence under mother. Page 2. Property division. She listed the penthouse as negotiable, not because she couldn't fight for it, but because she didn't want a place that had heard her cry more than laugh. Page 3. Financial disclosures. Her design firm was listed. Small, yes, but growing. Independent. Finally, page 5. Irreconcilable differences. She stared at the phrase for a moment, then wrote her name beneath it. Serena Woods. Still hers. Always hers. Just as she finished, Clara arrived, hair in a puffball bun, oversized sunglasses on, and the twins running toward her like she was a celebrity. I bring the chaos, Clara joked. Serena smiled. And I bring the calm. They swapped hugs, bags, and updates. As the girls settled back into their routine, Clara pulled Serena aside. You good? She asked, eyeing the paperwork on the table. I'm not sad, Serena said. I didn't ask if you were. I thought it would hurt more. But it doesn't. Because you already did the grieving. Serena nodded. And now, I'm signing the resurrection. They sat for a few minutes while the girls colored on the floor nearby. Clara sipped tea and pointed at the final page. Once you send that back, there's no more wondering. That's the point. No loopholes. No second guessing. No more waiting for him to see you. Serena looked over at Dara and Dora. Two beautiful reasons to never return to silence. I don't need him to see me. I need them to. Later that afternoon, Serena walked to the nearest express courier service and handed over the sealed manila envelope with a straight face and a clear mind. Priority delivery, she told the clerk. Same day? Same life. The woman blinked, then nodded. Absolutely. As Serena stepped out onto the street, she felt it. Not a breeze, not a chill. A shift. Like the city had subtly rearranged itself to make room for her, not as someone's wife, not as someone's afterthought, but as Serena Woods, fully awake, fully whole. It was just after 7 p.m. when the living room erupted with giggles. Serena leaned against the kitchen doorway, barefoot in matching silk pajamas with Dara and Dora, watching them dance around the rug like they owned the universe. Music played from the Bluetooth speaker, some cheerful pop song they loved. Crayons and coloring books were scattered across the coffee table. A glittery sticker clung to her thigh, courtesy of Dora. And it was perfect. Mommy, spin with us, Dara called. Serena didn't hesitate. She walked to the center of the room, took both their hands, and spun slowly. They squealed, little feet tapping on the hardwood, arms stretched wide, the room full of tiny chaos and unmatched joy. Serena laughed, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in a long time. Not a chuckle, not a polite exhale, a full, belly-deep laugh. They all collapsed onto the oversized couch, breathless. Dora curled into her left side. Dara leaned on her right. Serena looked down at them, one hand brushing through Dora's curls. You know what I realized today? She asked. What? Dara whispered. That my strength doesn't make me hard. What's that mean? Dora asked, eyes blinking sleepily. It means I can love you and still love myself. I can protect you without disappearing. I can be gentle and powerful, both. Dara nodded like she understood everything. And maybe she did. Their eyelids drooped fast. Serena didn't carry them to bed. She let them sleep on the couch, curled up in blankets, their little hands still tangled in hers. She watched them for a long time. They were the only people who had never asked her to shrink. Her phone buzzed beside her. A text from her attorney, confirmation, papers received by opposing counsel. She stared at the screen, then turned it face down. It was done. No more waiting for John to change. No more watching the door for apologies. No more second chances. Now, it was all forward. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft breathing of her girls and the slow hum of the city outside. Lights twinkled in the distance. Somewhere, parties were happening. Dinners being served. Deals being made. And here, a woman sat in pajamas with glitter on her leg, hair in a bun, the scent of cocoa butter on her skin, and 2 children snuggled under each arm. And she had never felt more powerful. She rose carefully, laying the girls down properly with their favorite blankets and whispering soft goodnights. Then she padded to the kitchen. pulled out her laptop, opened a blank document, typed in the name of her business at the top, Woods and Woven, Interior Concepts. She stared at it for a beat, then smiled, not because of the name, because for the first time in years, it was hers. She started jotting ideas, color schemes, logo sketches, mood boards. Her mind flowed, not because she was trying to prove something, because her creativity had finally been unchained. It poured out of her like water that had waited too long behind a dam. Hours passed, and when she finally shut the laptop, the sky outside had turned navy blue. She stretched, walked to her bedroom, and stood in front of the mirror. No makeup, no heels, no gown, just her, skin soft, eyes bright, hair messy, body at ease. She smiled at the reflection. "You're doing it." She didn't need to say more. Back in the hallway, she checked on the twins once more. Still asleep, faces peaceful. She leaned down, kissed Dara's forehead, then Dora's, then whispered into the night, "I'm not just your mother, I'm your example." As she climbed into bed, pulling the covers over her body, she thought about everything she'd lost, then everything she'd reclaimed. And then she thought, maybe none of it was lost. Maybe it was just waiting for this version of her, the one in pajamas, surrounded by love, owning peace. The penthouse was everything the old house had never been, open, luminous, and full of air that didn't taste like control. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline in sharp, unapologetic clarity. Marble floors stretched beneath Serena's bare feet as she walked slowly through the wide hallway, the twins trailing behind her, still in their matching bunny slippers. It wasn't just a new address. It was a statement. A woman reborn does not return to the shadows. Dara ran ahead first. "Is this our new castle?" Serena laughed. "Something like that." Dora spun in the living room. "Do we get to jump on the couch?" Serena gave them a mock stern look. "Only on Saturdays. And only after pancakes." The girls squealed, already plotting. Serena walked toward the kitchen island. A tall bouquet of lilies greeted her. Next to it, a white envelope embossed with gold. She opened it. A simple handwritten note. "Welcome home. H." She knew who it was from. Howell hadn't visited since the gala night, but not because of absence, because of restraint. He sent flowers, messages, doors of opportunity, and he didn't press. That made it harder to ignore the pull. But Serena wasn't in a hurry. She was building more than just a life. She was building a foundation, one that wouldn't collapse under someone else's insecurity again. She walked into the bedroom, her bedroom, and ran her hand across the new linen sheets. No ghosts, no memory of shouting from the stairs, no perfume that wasn't hers on the pillows, just peace and ambition. The design firm launched within a month. Woods and Woven opened its first office suite in Tribeca, small but elegant, the kind of place with exposed brick and warm wood that told clients luxury doesn't shout, it whispers with confidence. Serena hired 3 women, all mothers, all survivors of past versions of themselves. They met in the mornings with black coffee and red lipstick. They designed interiors that held meaning, homes that made women feel seen. She took on her first major client that same week, Howell. "I want a total renovation," he said during their consultation, seated across from her at the firm. "Of your penthouse?" Serena asked, raising an eyebrow. He smiled. "Of my life." She didn't flinch. "We only handle spaces." "Start there," he said, his gaze steady. She didn't let him touch her hand that day. But she remembered the look, and she filed it away for later. Not because she needed it, because it was hers to control. At night she came home to giggles and bedtime stories. The twins helped her sort fabric swatches and test sofa textures. Dara had opinions on wallpaper. Dora insisted velvet was the superior material for anything royal. Serena let them weigh in on the office lounge color. It became pink. Weeks passed like sunlight through wide windows. The city never stopped humming, but inside her world there was balance. Work, laughter, healing. Then, one Friday evening, while Serena was reviewing tile samples at home, she got a call. "Mrs. Woods?" A female voice asked. "Yes. This is Carmela Wicks. I sit on the board of Women Forward. We'd like to honor you at our fall gala." Serena blinked. "Honor me? Why?" "Your design firm is making headlines. not just because it's excellent, but because you employ single mothers. And your story, people are starting to hear it. I never told my story publicly. You didn't have to. Serena stared out the window after the call. The skyline glittered, unaware of the woman watching it. She didn't cry. She didn't grin. She just breathed, long, full, as if her lungs had finally remembered what air was supposed to feel like. She heard tiny footsteps behind her. "Mama," Dora's sleepy voice called. "Yes, baby." Dora climbed onto the couch beside her. "Are you happy?" Serena turned, met her daughter's eyes, and said, "Yes, I really, really am." The silk slid over her thighs like a secret only she deserved to know. Red lace, no audience, no occasion. Serena stood in front of her walk-in mirror, fastening the back clasp of her lingerie slowly, savoring each motion. She didn't dress like this for anyone else now. This wasn't a performance. It was a ritual, a daily reminder that her body, her curves, her scars, her softness and steel belonged to her. Only her. She wore lace under power suits. She wore it on slow Sundays when she didn't leave the penthouse. She wore it under sweatpants while dancing in the kitchen with Dora and Dara. Not because someone was watching, because it made her feel tuned in, turned on to her own existence. There were men, yes, handsome ones, intelligent ones, eager ones. She let them take her to dinners, fly her to Napa, leave her voicemails calling her unforgettable. They admired her curves, her wit, her silence, her command, but she never allowed them to own her time. They didn't meet her daughters. They didn't get to sleep over. They didn't hold the reins. One man asked, "What are we?" Serena smiled. "We are exactly what I say we are." He never called again. She was fine with that. She'd learned not to shrink into someone's expectations. Her pleasure wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was a compass. If the kiss didn't melt something in her chest, she stopped it. If a man touched her like he was following instructions from memory, she left him fully clothed. But when a lover kissed the inside of her wrist without rush, or whispered praise between breaths, then she let him stay a while. She didn't chase. She didn't wait. She curated. There was one night after a rooftop dinner when she brought someone home, a sculptor from Brooklyn, with eyes like bruised twilight and a voice that made even her silence feel charged. He kissed her shoulder. She pressed a finger to his lips. "No rush," she said. "Savor me." He did. Every sigh she let loose was on purpose. Every arch of her back was power. He worshipped, as they all did. But when morning came, he was gone, and her coffee was hot, and the day unfolded without ache. Because he wasn't the point. She was. Serena learned to love mirrors again, not for validation, but for clarity. She looked and saw a woman no longer seeking approval from suits and gala crowds. She had become her own applause. On her vanity she kept a tray of lipsticks, Deep Berry, Classic Nude, and her favorite, Vengeance Red. She wore it the night she signed the lease for her second office location. She wore it when she dropped off Dora and Dara in matching coats and waved goodbye to their teachers with the smile of a woman who'd survived ruin and rebuilt herself into elegance. One Sunday, Clara came by with wine. "You always look like you're headed to seduce a billionaire," Clara teased. Serena laughed. "That's because I'm seducing myself." They clinked glasses. Clara paused, eyes soft. "You're glowing, Serena. Really glowing. Like, it's coming from the inside." Serena tilted her head. "That's what happens when you stop letting shame choose your wardrobe." She didn't wear lingerie to be desired. She wore it because desire lived in her bones now. She wore it to feel the silk against her own skin before anyone else could. She wore it to remind herself that pleasure begins with the woman in the mirror. Dora once asked, "Why do you wear red lipstick at bedtime?" Serena smiled and pulled her daughter close. "Because even queens wear crowns when no one's watching." John Woods had always been good at appearances. Custom suits, calculated interviews, gala speeches that made him sound like a visionary. His reputation was a currency, clean, enviable, magnetic. He built an empire on image, and when cracks showed, he painted over them with charm and PR. But this time, there wasn't enough paint in the world. It started the Monday after the gala. Photos of Serena in red had flooded social media like wildfire. No hashtags needed. Her entrance had spoken louder than any campaign. Who's that? CEO's hidden wife stuns Manhattan elite. The real Mrs. Woods. Why was she erased? Then the whispers turned to facts. She wasn't just a stranger in a red dress. She was the wife, the mother of his children, the woman he'd kept hidden in a penthouse while parading a blonde mistress on red carpets and charity stages. John tried to stay ahead of it. His publicist sent statements. "This is a private matter. The Woods family asks for respect during this time. Mr. Woods remains committed to his values." But Manhattan wasn't listening, especially not the women. One article went viral. The CEO who hid his black family to protect his image. No names, no direct accusations, but everyone knew. The comments section didn't hold back. He took the phrase "erased from the narrative" literally. If she was blonde and pale, you think she'd be hidden? Married, with twins, and still chose arm candy for the cameras? Trash. You don't come back from this one, Woods. And then Serena spoke. She didn't give a tell-all interview. She posted a photo, a simple image, her daughters dancing barefoot in the living room, their giggles frozen mid-flight. Caption: "There was never anything shameful about us." The internet erupted. Women reposted it. Journalists quoted it. Influencers made videos about it. Serena wasn't just a story. She was a movement, a mirror, a reckoning. And John, he stumbled badly. He tried to control the narrative. Sat for an interview, stiff in a navy suit, hands clasped too tight. "I made mistakes in how I handled my personal life, but I've always provided for my family, always loved them." The interviewer raised an eyebrow. "You didn't publicly acknowledge your wife or daughters for over 6 years. Was that love or damage control?" John blinked, hesitated. The segment ended up trending. For all the wrong reasons. At the next shareholder meeting, half the room gave him clip nods. The other half stared at him like he was a cautionary tale. Mr. Howell didn't say a word, just smiled when John passed him in the hall. Then came the board vote. Quiet, efficient, final. John was eased out, given a golden parachute and a whisper of an exit. The company rebranded weeks later, without his name. At home, his days grew smaller. No more early meetings. No more black-tie dinners. The apartment echoed. Rousey had moved on, snapped up by another executive weeks after the fallout. His inbox was full of ignored pitches and politely declined speaking engagements. And Serena? She was everywhere. Magazine covers, panels on womanhood and resilience, guest appearances at charity events, luxury home spreads with her daughters beside her, grinning like light. When asked about John, she simply smiled and said, "I'm focused on what's ahead, not what's behind." It cut deeper than any insult. Once, late at night, John scrolled her Instagram. A reel played, Serena laughing with Dora and Dara, frosting cupcakes, music playing low in the background. It looked like joy. It looked like home, and it was no longer his. He tried to text her. "Can we talk?" No reply. "I miss them." Still silence. The message he didn't send said more. "I thought hiding you would protect me, but losing you revealed who I really am." The board forgot him. The public moved on. But Serena? She became legend. In the world of luxury, beauty, and business, stories were currency. And she was the story now, not the scandal, the comeback, the queen who burned quietly, then lit the sky. The zipper glided up her back with ease. No tug, no resistance. Serena stood still, the rich red fabric hugging every line, every curve, every choice she'd made. The dress hadn't changed, but she had. And somehow, it fit better now than it had the night she stepped into that ballroom. The mirror greeted her without judgment. No shadows, no ghosts, just her. Hair twisted in a soft crown, shoulders squared, a gleam in her eyes that no one had given her. She had forged it alone. The twins burst into the room, breathless from a game of hide-and-seek. Dora skidded to a stop. "Whoa," Dara gasped. "Mommy." Serena turned, hands smoothing down the fabric unconsciously. "You look like magic," Dora whispered. Serena smiled and crouched to their height. "No, baby," she said, brushing a curl from Dara's forehead. "I look like me." The twins beamed, wrapping their little arms around her waist. The satin rippled as they clung to her, leaving fingerprints of love and frosting behind. She didn't flinch, let it wrinkle, let it stain. Perfection had never been her goal. Presence was. She stood again, turning slowly toward the mirror. It wasn't just a dress anymore. It was memory and defiance stitched together. It was the night she stopped shrinking. It was the armor she wore when the world finally saw her. She remembered the moment, standing at the top of the grand staircase, breath steady, heart fierce. The entire ballroom had turned. Gasps, blinks, silence, then whispers that couldn't diminish her stride. John's face had paled. The crowd had parted, and Serena had become unforgettable. Now, months later, she wore it not for shock or spectacle. She wore it because it belonged to her, because magic wasn't in the dress. It was in the woman who dared to walk through fire wearing it. Behind her, Dora twirled in a tulle skirt, giggling. "I want a red dress too." "You will have one," Serena said. "But not yet." "Why not?" "Because it's not about the dress, baby." Dora blinked. "It's about the woman you become when you wear it," Serena said softly. She moved to the window. The city stretched below like a jeweled rug. Once, she had looked out and felt small. Now, she saw territory. Now she saw choice. There had been days when she thought her reflection might betray her. Mornings after John's cold silences. Nights when she'd wept quietly, telling herself to endure a little longer, for the twins, for appearances, for love. But the woman in the mirror now? She wouldn't beg. She wouldn't wait. She wouldn't be hidden. A soft knock came at her bedroom door. Clara peeked in. "Are you wearing it again?" Serena nodded. Clara stepped in and let out a low whistle. "It's still lethal." Serena chuckled. "It's not the dress, it's the history." They sat on the edge of the bed, the hem of crimson spilling between them. "You ever think you'd come back to this?" Clara asked. Serena tilted her head. "No. I thought I'd bury it. But you didn't." "No," Serena said, "because it's not about who I was. It's about who I refused to stop becoming." Later that night, the dress lay draped over a velvet chair, lit by the golden warmth of a nearby lamp. Serena stood in her robe, sipping tea, watching the city pulse. Her phone buzzed. A text from Howell. "Still my favorite color on you." She didn't reply. Didn't need to. She knew. So did he. The twins had fallen asleep curled against her legs earlier, whispering. Stories of princesses and fire dragons, asking if queens ever cried. "Of course they do," Serena had said. "But they never stay broken." She walked to the mirror one last time before bed. No makeup, no heels, just skin and peace. She touched the glass gently, not seeking reassurance, just saying hello. If this story lit a fire in you, if something inside you stirred when Serena zipped up that red dress, if you found yourself holding your breath when she walked into the gala with nothing but dignity on her back and fire in her bones, then don't let that feeling fade. Every woman carries a matchbox. Some were taught never to strike it, to stay quiet, to stay small, to make themselves palatable, pliable, invisible. But Serena's story was never about destruction. It was about illumination. She didn't burn to ruin a man. She burned to return to herself. And you can too. If you've ever been dimmed, if you've ever been told you were too much, too loud, too soft, too emotional, too ambitious, then let this be your reminder. You are never too much for the right life, only too powerful for the wrong one. Let your pain become your blueprint. Let your healing become your revolution. Let your name taste like legacy in your own mouth. Because Serena wasn't the only one hidden. She was just the first to stop apologizing for stepping into the light. Now it's your turn. Wear what makes you feel electric. Say no like it's a full sentence. Love yourself without a disclaimer. And never again let someone else narrate your worth. If you felt seen today, say something. Let your voice join the thousands of others who refuse to stay quiet. Like this video if Serena's journey reminded you of your own. Comment below. What flame are you ready to reclaim? Share this with every woman you know who's standing on the edge of her comeback. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This is where women rise. This is Love and Twilights. You were never broken. You were becoming. Now light the match.